Welcome into the VOLatile podcast, everyone. Tonight is Christmas Adam. When we're recording, listener, you'll be listening to us on Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas, everyone. We wanted to welcome you into the VOLatile podcast. This is your weekly reminder that being a Vols fan is a terminal diagnosis that we all share. Good night, guys. Glad to have you with me. We got a full crew tonight. Joe, how are you doing, man?
Great to be back. Sorry I missed last week, but you all did a great job without me. Threw a little shade, but I got broad shoulders and I can handle it. So keep it coming.
I feel like it was a compliment, but
yeah, okay.
Nick, how you doing, bud?
Doing well. Very excited for Christmas. Very excited to watch more ball games. Very excited to watch the Vols hopefully beat a mid-tier Big Ten team in a bowl game, which sounds like most of my adult life. So,
golly, it makes me want to gargle some bleach.
Jeff, how about yourself, man?
I'm okay, man. I'm doing okay. We watched Christmas Vacation tonight as a family. Had some pizza rolls, pretty good. Christmas Adam.
That's
nice.
A gift that keeps on giving, Jeff.
Little full, a lot of sap.
Beautiful. Were those homemade pizza rolls, Jeff, or did you get those from the T-Mart?
Homemade, yeah. T-Mart is in a tier of its own, but the homemade ones my wife produces are pretty deadgum good, so nice. I wasn't suffering.
Nice. Yeah, any Middle Tennessee listeners there close to the Cookville area will know, especially any tech grads will know the T-Mart that we're talking about. All right, guys, well, let's jump into it. We're going to kick off with football. We're going to start with Vols football, and kind of the biggest news that we've had since we've last recorded is that Peyton Lewis is transferring. So I figured we'd just kind of jump in and talk about this. I thought a fun way to kind of frame this discussion would be the biggest winner and biggest loser regarding this transfer, excuse me. So I'll go ahead and jump in and say
I'd be happy for it to be a trade. Depending on who we're trading with.
Savion Hyder, running out of Michigan.
That would be ideal.
Sorry, Mac. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I think the biggest winner here, and so start thinking about that if you have a different opinion. But obviously, to me, as soon as I saw this news, the biggest winner here has got to be Deshaun Bishop. We have been dying all year for him to get more carries, and I would just love to see in the bowl game him actually be, the running back that gets 75% of the carries instead of having to split that with two other guys. So I'm excited for that. Biggest winner, Deshaun Bishop. Anybody have anything else?
I'm trying to think. I guess Morris will be the backup, or you think Star Thomas is playing? Has he said anything?
A Star going to the – I mean, he's not been invited to the Senior Bowl, so I imagine he probably is playing, right?
I would assume he's playing, but if you look at, over the last 5 games, his, percentage of the carries has just gone steadily down. I mean, he hasn't really had significant touches since
mid-season.
I don't even know. Yeah, like the Bama game or something. It's been like November, he barely got the ball at all, so –
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Deshaun Bishop is clearly the better back. I don't think there's really a whole lot of debate to be had there. Lewis had 70 carries, 290 yards, 7 TDs. He was averaging 4 yards a carry. So to me, that's a low impact stat line. Just kind of overall. And Deshaun Bishop has better vision. He has, more patience. He finds the hole. He's more explosive off the line. He's just all around better. Was Lewis better in pass pro? I don't even know if I could answer that question.
I'll just be honest with you. I think he's physically more gifted than Bishop. Yes. On a dead sprint, I think Lewis is faster. Bishop, per the off season, is ripped and kind of probably maximized his skeletal potential in terms of strength. But as a natural athlete, I think Lewis is probably stronger. That's the disappointment for me that, I'm very happy with Bishop, but Lewis was probably physically better than the 4-star that he came in as, and he just never developed. And I think, Joe, you were talking about his vision. That's what I consistently heard the problem was, that he just didn't see the hole. He didn't hit it hard. Didn't really know how he wanted to use his abilities. Like, is he going to try to outrun guys? Is he going to try to run guys over? Both were on the table for him, and so it looks like he could just kind of never settle in on one of those. And it just feels like a lost opportunity. I think we could have had something really special in him, but for whatever reason, the recipe didn't turn out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to totally derail the conversation here, but is this another version of like the Milton problem, the Lewis problem? Why do we have these really incredible athletes that we can't ever seem to get into a productive mode? And then, you get the Jalen Hyatts, right? The guys that you take who are, less athletically gifted and turn them into superstars, hopefully. And is that a recipe for success long term?
Gosh, Joe, I've never thought about that. Glad you brought it up.
Yeah, we should talk about that on a podcast sometime.
That's the nightmare thing. Like, I don't want to keep doing this to Heupel. But yeah, that ghost is always there, man. Like, how did the studs that he brings in not actually develop into their full potential? Now, Braylon Staley out of the box was a really great receiver this year.
Right.
So, like, I'm trying to put my foot on the brakes, but yeah, I think that's the first question that comes up. Like, this, they got sort of a diamond in the rough, getting probably 5-star talent out of a 4-star, and he's hit the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Well, is Dylan Sampson? Forgive me for not remembering how highly ranked he was, but he's someone who was at Tennessee the whole time and who, lived up to his potential and probably more. But maybe, which I guess the question is, which way does Dylan Sampson swing on that spectrum? Is he a guy who, was better than his ranking?
Recruit?
Ooh, good question.
I don't know that he was a Heupel recruit. Does anybody have access to Google?
Yeah, hang on. He was a 4-star. I know that for sure.
Well,
passed over by LSU though, right? Because wasn't that the chip on his shoulder? Because that was the hometown school.
Oh, LSU didn't recruit him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking here. It says this is AI overview. So take it whatever you want. Take it however you want. But he was generally considered a 3-star recruit coming out of high school by most services, though some sources also labeled him a 4-star prospect coming to Tennessee. And, a Louisiana boy, that was the chip on the shoulder that you were mentioning. So
3-star, 4-star, Lewis was a 4-star, 5-star, right?
Yeah.
I'm still curious if Heupel recruited him. For whatever reason,
he did. It was class of 2022, so Heupel would have been.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then he definitely goes in Heupel's win column. I was going to say it seems like Heupel's better at developing other people's players into, a stud, but this one definitely goes in his win column. What are you going to say, Mac?
I was about to call timeout here because I do think that you're right that Dylan Sampson goes in Heupel's win column, but don't forget that Dylan Sampson was the same guy posting on his Instagram story that he wasn't getting enough carries, and it seemed like he was about to be off the team. Like, I just think that one thing we haven't said that seems to be a recurring problem is that our running back room, though generally speaking under Heupel's coaching time here at Tennessee has been full of studs, is full of too many guys that aren't getting enough run. Like, we need to cut down a little bit, I think, on the depth because we have good quality depth at running back, but there's no reason that a guy like Dylan Sampson should be splitting carries with Jabari Small. I like Jabari Small. I have no problem. I thought he was a good player. I enjoy watching him play, serviceable back. But Dylan Sampson is an NFL running back. To me, it felt like Butch Jones all over again, where you got Jalen Hurd and Alvin Kamara, and clearly Alvin Kamara needed more touches. Now, obviously, Jalen Hurd was a.
You don't think 6 a game was enough?
Obviously,
wait a minute. The Instagram thing of him, it was a picture of a cheetah in a cage, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Wasn't
and it was
that,
basically...
wasn't that the year that it was Jabari Small and why have I lost his Jalen Wright? I get not playing Jabari Small over Dylan, but I'm not playing Dylan that year over Jalen Wright.
No, and I'm not saying that, but there's no reason why Jabari Small is getting more carries than Dylan Sampson that year. Dylan Sampson was clearly the better running back. I mean, that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the 2023 season, because that Dylan Sampson Instagram post happened when we were going to Gainesville. That was the week before we went to Gainesville, the Joe Milton season, so 2023. And if you remember, in the season opener that year against Virginia, Dylan Sampson had 4 touchdowns in the season opener, and he was still not getting the majority of the carries. It's like, what in the world are we doing?
Yeah, doesn't that have a lot to do though with
posting? Sorry, Nick. Let me run this real quick because I'm trying to get myself located historically. Isn't the year that he posted the cheetah thing the year that he missed the blitz? He didn't pick up the blitz on Hendon at LSU, and Hendon got just destroyed.
It's possible. For some reason, I have that memory of him posting that before we went to Florida in 2023. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea.
Well, but even so, if he was at that level of missing blocks in crucial moments, I guess I don't blame the coaching staff for being like, dude, you've got to be able to pick up your blocking before we give you a lot of more carries. And that would make sense with Small too, because Small isn't going to dominate the game carrying it, but he's never going to leave your quarterback with his brains leaking out on the turf the way that Hendon got left in LSU. Sorry, Nick. I really do. I didn't mean to step on you.
That's okay. You're making the point that I want to make, which is that Dylan Sampson was a horrible in pass protection early on, and honestly, this is one of the reasons why Deshaun Bishop is so valuable, because, and to Mac's point, why I think I agree that he is the biggest winner is because Deshaun Bishop is not the fastest, the most athletic, even though when you watch him run the football, he clearly sees the field better than everybody else and is overall the best back on the team. I think he has always had to split carries with guys that they're hoping will come along because their ceiling is higher than Deshaun's, but they can't do the things that Deshaun can do in the pass protection game. The small things that you have to do other than just run the football at the running back position. And so I think that's been a problem for Peyton Lewis. I think he was better this year, but he was really bad in pass protection last year. And that's something that Dylan Sampson struggled with early on as well. But that's the coach's job to get you ready to do that, So I don't know. Maybe there's a problem there with why can't they get the young talented backs, ready to pass protect. So
the Instagram post was after the Florida loss in the 23 season. So that would have happened on our way home.
Gotcha. So, I knew it was around that Florida game, or I thought I remembered it being around that game. And the 23 season would have been Sampson, and was Jabari Small still on the team there, or was that?
No, that would have been Bishop as the backup, right? After Jalen Wright left. Jabari Small didn't stay another year, did he?
No, I think they went out the same year.
I did too.
Was that 22 or was that 23?
I don't know.
I think Bishop was the backup Dylan's great season because he'd come out of Carnes.
Well, that's definitely true, but that was last year.
Sorry, I thought that's what we're talking about. I need to catch up to the podcast. My apologies.
No, yeah. So we're talking about 23. So this would have been 2 years ago. 24 last year was Sampson's obviously great year. Deshaun was his backup. I thought frankly, that's another angle of this is Deshaun should have gotten slightly more carries last year, not because of Dylan Sampson's lack of ability to do anything. Obviously, Dylan Sampson was the best player on our team last year by far. But Deshaun needed more carries last year just to give Dylan a break and also to give him some more, just some more in-game experience. I thought they didn't use Deshaun enough last year, but 2 years ago, I'm not remembering who was on the team. Joe, can you fill us in there? I think you've got it.
Yeah, so the running back room for the 23 roster was Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, and Dylan Sampson.
Dylan Sampson.
Yeah, so Dylan Sampson on the 23 team I'm with you, Jeff, that Jalen Wright was so yeah, that's obvious. We should have known that because remember the 23 game against Georgia is the game where Jalen Wright on the first play of the game had like an 75-yard touchdown run, and then we didn't do another thing the rest of the game. But in that season, Jabari Small had no business playing over Dylan Sampson as much as he did. I agree with what you're saying that Jabari is a better pass protector and he knew the system. And I like Jabari. I'm not here to like crap on him. I like his time here. He's a very serviceable running back. He just unfortunately was on a team that had 2 NFL running backs on it. So I get Dylan Sampson couldn't block, but okay, then don't put him in there to block. Like let Jalen Wright have the blocking downs, let him get 50% of the carries, and the other 50% need to be Dylan Sampson. Like he just was not used enough, and that was frustrating back then because he was clearly the next best guy.
And he was the home run hitter back then too. Like, right. Jalen had speed, but when Dylan got the ball and got loose, it was a threat to get a touchdown. Are
we talking about 2023 still? To be clear,
yes. Joe Milton on the road at Florida when we went down there to watch us lose.
Because Jalen Wright got 137 attempts in 23. Dylan Sampson got 106, which was second on the team.
How many did Jabari get?
95.
So that's what I'm saying. Those two, I know he got more, but it shouldn't have been that close. It should have been more like 130 to 70. It should have been a bigger gap between Dylan Sampson and Jabari. That's what I'm saying. Right. The gap needed to be bigger because Dylan Sampson was that good.
In the future.
And I just don't know how to quantify this. I don't know how a coaching staff says we can't trust you to block, and therefore pretty quickly when you're in the game, everybody knows you're getting the ball. I can't know that. And so the Hendon sack makes me think that it was more reasonable to try to protect your quarterback. Now, Joe Milton was a big physical monster and could probably deal with that better, right? So, like, maybe you try it more with a guy like with that frame. You're probably not going to try it with Nico. I'm just assuming that's part of the pie chart. Does that make sense? Like I'm usually the negative ball guy on here. I'm just saying like this is one of those times that he's a hyper recruit. He really maximized his output. Maybe it really was about the blocking and the message got through to Dylan and he figured it out. Maybe.
Well, that's why I started getting back to the original question here. Who's the winner, who's the loser with Peyton Lewis transferring? Lewis maybe has all of those physical advantages in his athleticism, but if he doesn't run the scheme well, right, you're kind of in a similar situation where that guy's got to go because we got somebody who's getting really good production. He may not be as athletic as you are, but he's getting really good production, and he actually can run the system. I can use him in pass pro. I can send him out to run routes. Obviously, he runs the ball well. So, Deshaun Bishop is definitely the biggest winner, and I'm super excited about that. I really like Deshaun Bishop. I like watching him play. I'm glad he's on our team. I'm glad we're not having to defend against him. I think he'd be an absolute monster in other systems and on other teams. And this is where I disagree with maybe some of the people here on the chat. But I don't know how much. I don't think I put as much weight into the star rating system that some of y'all do. They got 5-star hearts.
Hey guys, I'm going to bounce Joe.
Kick him off
from the pod. Give me just a second here.
You have the power to kick him off of this podcast.
Yeah, we should probably go murder him after.
Not that piece. Obviously, you want 5-star talent, but the guy who's giving you the most production, that's the guy who gets all the opportunity, I think. And Deshaun Bishop is clearly that guy. So.
Yeah. So, Joe, you raised an interesting point there that I hadn't thought about until you were talking about him sort of fitting into the system itself. This is one of the things that's so frustrating about this era. But this could have been a budget decision. Peyton Lewis may have been told to look for another opportunity if his price point is higher than what they're thinking they're getting from him in production.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just not something that's even this far into the NIL era. It's just not something I'm used to thinking about. But this could not have been Peyton Lewis's decision ultimately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's-
I know we all want
ahead, Nick.
Savion Hyder, but there's also, whether it's Savion Hyder or not, there's also just a possibility that there's money allocated for someone that they're pretty sure is going to come in the portal, right?
There has to be now.
I mean, yeah, now there has to be, but it's possible that's already the case, and that, you know, it's either this is an effect of something that's already happened, or this is going to be the cause of, well, now we really got to go out and get somebody. And I really hope it's just that Savion Hyder is already in the bag. So,
Mac, what were you going to say? I was going to talk about running backs a little bit further down the road.
Nothing. No, you go ahead.
None of this really matters if we're still trying to get that kid out of Chattanooga. He doesn't, it's not a Chattanooga name, but it's like 3 names: D something George, David Gabriel George. Have y'all seen this kid?
Yes.
I don't care if we empty out the entire running back room except for Deshaun Bishop to make him want to feel wanted. We have to secure that kid.
Yeah, we've got him. I mean, he's going to come here. The fear with him is just like the fear with, kind of like what Joe's saying about, obviously, like, star ratings can be inaccurate at times. But, David Gabriel George's is like, he's the best running back in the nation, for a reason.
His film is unbelievable. His film is like high school Bo Jackson.
The only nightmare, he's going to be in a Tennessee uniform. The nightmare is he in a Tennessee uniform, and we've somehow done this Tennessee. And we talked about this earlier where, I don't think it's as much like is Heupel evaluating the talent correctly, but it just feels like across the board, and I'm sure this is just me being sensitive, it just feels like across the board, anytime Tennessee gets a 5-star player in any sport, they're just never as good as like what other 5-star players look like on other teams. Like in basketball, like we have Nate Ament right now, and Nate Ament is a 5-star. He's supposed to be one of the best players in the country, and he does not look like that. And then you can go back a few years, like Jaden Springer was on that team with Kennedy Chandler. So like maybe that effect, but like Jaden Springer didn't look like the 5-star that he was supposed to be. Like it just feels like it's a perpetual issue at the University of Tennessee in any sport except for baseball, where you get these elite level guys on paper and everyone's like, oh, this guy's a can't miss prospect. And then for some reason, they're just not that good. I mean, obviously, Bryce Brown, you can go back 2009, like Bryce Brown. We got Bryce Brown, who, was the best running back in the nation, this elite guy. And he did absolutely nothing at Tennessee. I don't even know where he went after that, but did nothing. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, in like 2015, he pops up on the Eagles and is like the best running back on the Eagles for like 3 weeks. It's like, what in the world is going on?
Nick, I know you've got something, but can we name this paradigm Mac is talking about the Josiah Jordan James? Can we just give him the honorary
the Triple
designation?
J?
This 5-star who does nothing for us gets the Triple J award.
Yeah, I think Khalil McKenzie gets thrown in that bucket too. I can't remember if anyone mentioned his name, but he was, an okay. I think he played. Did he play on the defensive side of the ball for us? And I think he was just okay. And then in the NFL, he got moved to the offensive side of the ball and was like pretty good. But what I was going to say to play the other side of this, is I actually think the star ratings matter a ton. I think they're way more right than they are wrong. And I think that the disparity that we're talking about between probably what we're all thinking in our heads is like, why do Alabama and Ohio State and LSU's, why do their 5-stars always look like 5-stars? Is because for the past 15 years, for every one of those guys that we have, they have like 4 or 5. And so when you have 4 or 5 of those guys and 2 of them hit, then it doesn't matter that like the other 3 didn't hit. And so I just think you have more opportunity when you stack them up for those guys to hit. I'm a big believer in the blue chip ratio. And so I think that they're literally just numbers that say here are the 12 to 18 teams that can win a national championship every year, because you have to have more talent. It doesn't matter your coaching. I mean, your coaching matters, but at the end of the day, you have to have Jimmys and Joes. And so if you don't have more 4 and 5-star recruits than you do 2 and 3-star recruits, you just can't win. There's coaching can push you over the threshold, but you still have to be at a floor in order
Yeah.
to achieve that. And Tennessee was over that threshold this year, not by a lot, but they were over it. And so coaching can push you over that, but your margin for error just goes way down when you have a lot of blue chip recruits on your roster, and some of them are going to miss, but more of them are going to hit than not. So I'm a huge believer in the star in the star rating system. So.
Well, it's funny you say that because that segues perfectly into who I had as the biggest loser. The biggest loser I had written down for this was the recruiting analysts, because Peyton Lewis was we talked about. I think he did end up being a 4-star. Though, like Joe read, he's kind of a fringe 4-star maybe, but he was the number 4 running back in the class of 24 nationally. Number 4 running back. Peyton Lewis does not look like the 4th best running back in the country. And maybe that's his own doing. Maybe that's the system. Maybe that's a combination of things. But I just, though, to your point, I think I agree with what you're saying, Nick, that like blue chip ratio and how that's important. I think I agree. But I do think that there's no way you can look at what Peyton Lewis has done and say, yeah, he's the 4th best running back in that class. Like he just doesn't look like it,
I agree with that. And that's why I think you have to look at it. You can look at it individually and say sometimes those things miss.
Sure.
But like corporately and at large, I think it's way more right than it is wrong.
Yeah.
And so
was he in Nico's
for every one
class?
of those guys we have, Alabama's got like 4 of those dudes in their depth chart.
Yeah, that's a solid point. I will say Nico's freshman class is not looking good for recruiting analysts. And that quarterback class is a disaster.
He was Nico was a year before Peyton Lewis.
Okay. Nico's is, Arch Manning has been okay, but all those quarterbacks have looked like garbage and bounced around. And I don't know, maybe it's maybe with agents now, with involved with high school players. Maybe agents are doing something with On3 and 24/7, but something's. We may be about to discover something seems fishy with recruiting rankings in this new era. Yeah. Mac, before we move on to bowl, since Music City Bowl isn't exactly sparking confidence, and we used to be a playoff team, you had mentioned that last year Dylan Sampson needed more of a break.
Mm-hmm.
What's the podcast's temperature on Dylan Sampson was hurt against Ohio State?
I mean, you're playing your 13th game. He, as a running back that got, I don't even know, but I would venture to guess
248 carries, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and probably by percentage, that was what, like 90%. I don't know how many Deshaun Bishop had last year, or how many. I know Peyton Lewis got a few last year, but I mean, he probably had 90% of the carries. I mean, it would be shocking to me if he wasn't pretty banged up in that game.
Did he catch the ball in the second half of the Ohio State game?
No. So Dylan Sampson, just so you know, had 258 carries last year, and the next closest was Deshaun Bishop at 74.
Yeah, that. Gosh. Like, Dylan Sampson is good enough to get all those carries. I'm not lamenting that we gave him the ball so much. Again, he was your best player. Our passing game wasn't great last year. We all know like the details that go into that, but there's still no reason why Deshaun Bishop isn't getting more of a load, especially when you know that his pedigree is the type of guy who gets better the more he carries the ball. Like there were plenty of games where he could have gotten more run, more carries, and he might have done better. And they might have seen more of like, oh, Deshaun Bishop is a guy who can pass pro well, who can, get us 3 yards when we need it. Let's give him the ball just a little bit more, not because Dylan deserves to have it less, but because he's our guy. Like we need to protect him a little bit, insulate him a little bit. Let's give Deshaun some more carries.
So are you arguing there's some kind of middle ground for because earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like you were saying when like 2023, Dylan didn't touch the ball near enough, and now you're saying he touched the ball too much in 20. Mm-hmm. So are you saying there's some kind of middle ground that we're not hitting?
Yeah. Well, I think what he's saying is the starter needs a little bit more support from the backup, and you can sort of slot each individual set of names into that as you go along. That Heupel is maybe grinding his starting running back, whoever that person is, year by year, into powder too quickly when he could be leaning on the backups a little bit more. Tell me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Mac.
No, that's definitely true. But I think this year, it's like he overcorrected a little bit. It's like he looked at the team last year and was like, okay, we gave Dylan the ball. Let's just say 90% of the time. He gave Dylan the ball 90% of the time. Well, I don't want to run Deshaun like that. We learned, maybe we overran Dylan a little bit. He was hurt in the Ohio State game. That hurt our chances to win that game. Maybe so this year he took a little bit off of Deshaun's load and was like, well, I'm going to give Star Thomas and Peyton Lewis a little bit more run. But I think he did it too much. Like Deshaun is the type of guy who benefits from carrying the ball more. That's just his style. Austin Price talks about this a lot, like at his time at Carnes, which obviously like high school, different than college. But at Carnes, he in his Beyond the Orange, that Austin Price talks to, a different player each week and kind of interviews them. Deshaun would say like he felt stronger carrying the ball on his 40th carry than he does on his 20th carry. He just kind of is a guy that the more he carries it, the more he settles into the game, the more he kind of acclimates to what's going on. And he gets better as the game goes on. So a guy like that, he needs more run. This year, I think Deshaun needed a little bit bigger of a discrepancy between the amount of carries he got and the amount of carries that I think probably our second most guy was probably Star Thomas. Is that right? Is everyone? I mean, that's kind of off the
I would
cuff.
assume so. It just fell off at the end really hard.
Right. I think total number, I bet Star still has more carries than Peyton Lewis does. And so yes, Nick, I think there's a middle. I think there's a middle ground.
Star Thomas had 95 carries. Peyton Lewis had 70.
Right. I think there is a middle ground where it's like there needs to be maybe a 50 carry difference between your starter and your second string. Again, this is also you're talking about the coach who rotates running backs every 2 possessions, regardless of how many plays they were in, how many carries they got. Like he's doing everything scripted. If it's so scripted, then why is there not a little bit tighter of a gap between your starting running back and your second running back about the amount of carries they're getting? I don't know. I just think there's some learn. And again, this isn't like condemning Josh Heupel's. Obviously, our running backs have been the strongest position group of all of our teams since he's been here. I think across the board. So like he's doing it well, but I still think there's some room for improvement of how we manage the running backs.
So you think 23 was too tight because Jalen Wright was the leading carrier at 137, Dylan Sampson was 106. So you're saying there should have been.
I think that the tightness there was between Dylan and Jabari. I didn't love how many carries Jabari got when you consider the fact that Jabari was not nearly as talented as Dylan Sampson was.
Sure.
So I guess what I'm saying is I can't like put a blanket like it's always the 1 and 2 or it's always it's just I think it changes.
On the room.
Yeah, it changes from year to year, but generally speaking, you got to give the ball most to your best guys. And like Jabari Small didn't need the ball as much as he did in 23. Dylan Sampson got it too much in 24. And again, that's not because of his talent. It's because if he is your best player, which he was obviously last year, he just needed some more rest. I think we could have done some load management stuff in games where you had him in the bag. And, I think of like the NC State game. Like, I don't know what we dominated NC State. Like, I don't remember. I mean, I was at that game, so maybe I'm just misremembering it, but I don't remember not Dylan Sampson, sorry. I don't remember Deshaun Bishop getting a ton of carries in that game. And that's a game where it's like, well, give him the ball more, So anyways, I may not be creating a coherent argument here, but I do think that there's just some tweaks that need to be made as far as the divvying up of the carries between our running backs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm happy to concede that.
I mean, I'm not sure that this matters. I was an early investor in Jake Merklinger, and that did not pay off. But I was also an early investor in Deshaun Bishop, and I feel pretty good about that one. Mm-hmm. But you were talking about his high school career. They ran him every play. I don't know if y'all remember that, but like he had incredible tread taken off his tires in high school. I'm assuming we're bringing in a portal running back, but
have to.
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure what that means for a guy who ran so heavily in high school. If now he becomes your 95% of the carries guy, I guess we'll probably get to see that in the bowl game. but we probably ought to have some kind of plan for maybe letting him eat more and get into that rhythm you're talking about. But if he becomes a guy in his junior year, right? He'll be a junior next year.
Yes.
Where they're doing what he did at Carnes, to whatever degree that's possible in the high pool system, that may not be a great long-term plan.
Yeah, so that segues, nicely into the next thing, which was just that we mentioned after the Merklinger transfer, no matter what happens with Joey, you've got to get a transfer QB at this point, and I think you've also now got to get a transfer running back. Obviously, the question still is, and none of us really have the answer. I think we all have opinions, but the question still is, how much can you realistically allocate for either a competing starter at quarterback and a backup running back, or a backup quarterback to boost your redshirt freshman and your incoming freshman. Obviously it's something.
Well, there's no freshman running back in this class, right?
Right. Like that's what I'm saying. No, you have to get a run. Like, it's non-negotiable. A running back's got to come through the transfer portal now. Even if it's a third string guy, like, you've got to get one. And you've also got to get a quarterback for the depth. So I just hope that Heupel is able to assess that and say, okay, we trust what we've got in GMAC and Faison. So yeah, we're going to pay, less than $1 million to a quarterback to come here. And since we, have lost Peyton Lewis, whether that's by design or by him just, wanting to move on or make more money or whatever it is, that he's just got to do the right thing when it comes to how much can we afford to spend on these two positions that you have to have now. Because Austin Price was saying on the VolQuest podcast, that he was saying what Nick said last week, which is basically that you should, or in his opinion, what he would do is invest more in defensive players, really, bolster the defense well next year, and try and get a cheap quarterback that you feel like you can get the most out of, and just see between the three of those, GMAC, Faison, and whoever this other quarterback is, who wins the job. And I think I'm coming around to that idea. I think that's a good plan, especially because obviously Heupel's system is quarterback friendly. So we should be able to get a guy who is cheap but would help us in the transfer portal at quarterback, or GMAC and Faison are the guys that they are according to the recruiting guys, and they just win the job anyways. I think that that's probably the safest plan, the plan that makes the most sense. I still think, though, if you can go get like a Sam Levitt or something for $3 million, that's a no-brainer. You have to do it.
So we've got in the running back room right now, I just pulled it up. We've got Bishop, Dwayne Morris, who was a freshman this year, Justin Baker, who's a freshman, and some guy named Hunter Barnes, who's a redshirt junior, which I assume means his dad is a big booster. Does anybody remember the scouting or the star system evaluation, whether or not it matters on Dwayne Morris and Justin Baker?
Anybody
remember? Yeah, I don't either.
Justin Baker is a 3-star. He's from Buford, Georgia. And Morris is also a 3-star. Baker was rated 88. Morris is rated 89. And Morris was pretty small, if I remember correctly. Like, he looked pretty small out there. Like, I don't think he probably even weighs 200 pounds. I think Baker's a little bit bigger, but did we see him at all? I mean,
I imagine you will next week.
Yeah.
I think he
see everybody next week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Morris is going to get a lot more carries in the Music City Bowl than he's gotten, in a singular game all year. Anytime Deshaun's on the field, it's going to be Dwayne Morris. So I think you're about to see what he's got, which is good. I'm excited to see that. Win or lose, I just want to see these guys get some playing time and let's see where we're at. But I don't foresee Baker getting carries next year, given the fact that you're going to have to go get a transfer running back. And I imagine whoever that is going to be probably beating him out for that third spot.
Yeah, the
Rocky
bottom
Top
line
Insider's
is
talking about Sutton Smith out of Memphis.
I haven't watched him play. I've heard his name. I know they had a pretty good team for Memphis this year, but I mean, Max right. The bottom line is you got to have a fourth guy. It's either got to be, someone who's going to come in and maybe completely share the load with Deshaun, or like a clear number two. It's hard at this point, and guys can develop, to imagine Morris or Baker carrying the football 100 times, next year. Behind, if Deshaun's going to carry it 150, it's hard to imagine one of those guys carrying it 100.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to throw back to kind of the Dylan Sampson early days where Bishop steady Eddie, you feed him the ball, and then you can bring in a change of the pace guy who can hit a home run, which
Yes.
Peyton Lewis could have been if Peyton Lewis had ever developed that. But
Mhm.
it'd be nice to have kind of a rocket on the bench. We'll see.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100% with that, Jeff. I mean, I think that's the key, right? Is like, go get somebody who is explosive. Go get somebody who we can pass the. I mean, I think that's another thing too we haven't talked about when we're talking about running backs is Tennessee just doesn't throw the ball to running backs enough. And this year, when they tried, the running backs couldn't catch. So I don't blame them for not doing it this year. But like Dylan Sampson was a player that could catch the ball out of the backfield, and I don't think we use that enough. And so I would love to see us go get an explosive guy like Jeff's describing, who we can pass the ball to. And we can. I don't care if he's a 1-star, if he's really fast and is an intelligent player. Like let's go get that guy who can just do some things that Deshaun Bishop can't do, and let's just see what happens. That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, Sutton was a playmaker in that regard for Memphis. He hit big plays for them. I don't know what the budget is. It's just I mean, it's just so frustrating to not be able to know what the factors are. It'd be one thing to be like, hey, we're just putting our best case as a program on the table to get somebody in, but we don't know what price points are. We don't know what the budgets are. College football is in trouble in a lot of different ways, but this part's really frustrating as a fan. What's realistic? And we have no ability to know whatsoever.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know if they have $18 million to spend or $30 million to spend. So.
Absolutely. If y'all are good, I'm going to just move on here and we'll talk a little bit about the Music City Bowl, just touch on it. We're going to do our deep dive next Monday. That's the 29th, and we'll release that episode the morning of the game on New Year's Adam, December 30th. So Music City Bowl, we've got that next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Again, opt-outs because of the NFL are Arion Carter, Chris Brazel. Haven't had any more news as far as Tennessee opt-outs go. Obviously, Peyton Lewis now is, in a roundabout way, an opt-out because he's entered the transfer portal. We still got Jake Merklinger, who's going to transfer, but I'm not really counting him because obviously he wasn't going to play in this game probably anyways. Really those three are kind of the guys who you're used to seeing on the field that you won't see: Peyton Lewis, Arion Carter, and Chris Brazel. For Illinois, we still got just J.C. Davis and Gabe Akis. Those two guys are opted out. I did hear final word for sure that Luke Altmaier is playing. So Illinois will have their starting quarterback in that game, which is, I think I'm happy about that. I mean, obviously it'd be nice selfishly to not have to deal with their starting quarterback, but I do think it's a better, because to what y'all are saying, you were saying at the beginning of the show, like that this game is a lose-lose for Tennessee, or at least it feels that way. If that's true, if that's the case, which I'm definitely sympathetic to y'all saying that, then I would rather just play them as full strength as possible just to see where we're at. Because the reality is we're probably not going to be thrilled with the outcome no matter what.
I watched the whole season. I think I know where they're at.
Well, I mean, more so like the guys, like Morris, like the guys that we haven't seen play a ton. I'm just excited to see some of those guys get a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just bitter that we're back in the Music City Bowl playing a nothing burger of a team.
The thing is, like, this team, and this can be said about us as well, this team didn't beat anybody unless you want to count USC as somebody, which I really don't. And Tennessee didn't really win any of the big games that they played either. but it's just kind of an objective fact that our roster is better than this roster, and like we should just win this football game. And so, if they don't, even with their starting quarterback, I just think that's not good. Like, you got every guy's ready to play and go beat an inferior team in a bowl game.
Well, let me just run back.
You've known
through
you're
a
out of the
couple.
playoff for a while, so it's not like, there's always that trap of the team that thought they were going to get in the playoff or were on the edge, and then going into a bowl game and laying an egg because they're just like, what are we even doing here? But Tennessee's known for a while they're not going to be in the college football playoff, so they should be past that part of the mental struggle, and they should just come out and win this game. I mean, that's all there's to it.
Of like SEC games, we knew we had a better roster than Mississippi State, right?
Yep.
And we pulled that one out. How confident are we that we had a better roster than Vanderbilt?
I think we
Pretty
did
confident.
ultimately.
Pretty confident.
Yeah, I would say so too. Didn't win that one. Didn't look good in that one. I don't know, boys. I mean, Max said we're going to win off air, and he's generally pretty good predicting, but I don't know. I don't know what either team is playing for. What team is motivated for what? Maybe Joey feeling like it's his last collegiate game. I don't know what his sense of that lawsuit is. Maybe that's our motivation. I don't know what else though.
I mean, motivation. Yeah. I mean, other than just pride, right? You get to put on the power tee and you get to play another game. And
let me remind you about the Vanderbilt game.
Vanderbilt was a good team, though. I mean,
they're a
it's
good team,
and they had motivation. That's my point.
Right. Right.
What does this team? What does this team show us that they play for?
I don't know what it is. I guess what I'm saying is, to get to Nick's point, on paper, like was our roster objectively better than Vanderbilt's? I think the answer to that question is yes. I agree with you guys, but Vanderbilt's roster was pretty good, and they played competitively in all the games that they played, versus this Illinois team that we're going to be playing. Like, I don't think that the two are the same, even though it is true we have a better roster than them. Like, that part of it is true. That's, to me, it's apples and oranges. I mean, I don't think the Vanderbilt game is a good reason to think that, well, they're going to come out here and lay an egg. They should go out there and win this football game. And I think there are a lot of guys, especially with this kind of movement that we're talking about, there are a lot of guys that should have the motivation to show, hey, I should be a starter next year. I mean, I don't know, man. It's frustrating because I don't want to see bowl games go away. I like bowl games. I like bowl season. I like that we get all this football during this time of the year. And so I don't want to see them go away. But these games have to matter somehow, right? If we're going to do this, then they got to matter. And the only way that they matter to me, the only way forward that I see, is giving guys who are lower on the depth chart opportunities to play for their spot. That should matter.
I hope you're right, man. It seems to me like when we play teams that are not as talented as we are, if they have any kind of motivation,
sure,
that trumps our superior talent. And I don't know what Tennessee's is. And so if Illinois finds some, I think I'm worried.
All right, here's the black pill.
Okay, it's just the Music City Bowl, but
Jeff's already given us the black pill, but here's the bigger black pill. Okay, this is the Athlon Sports.
Good, this is what we need.
This is the Athlon Sports roster rankings for 2025, and what this ranking does, if you've never looked at it, is it takes a 5-year average of your recruiting classes for the last 5 years, and then it ranks everybody based on those averages.
Come on and hurt me, Nick. Come on,
I'm
and hurt
ready
me.
to. I'm going to. So Tennessee is 15th on this list. Okay. Illinois is 49th on this list. So we have a much better roster than Illinois. The black pill is Vanderbilt's tied for 47th with Pitt. Now, here's the other side of that. And I think this genuinely matters. Max says this all the time. Quarterback's the most important position on the field, maybe the most important position in the sport. And Illinois' QB ain't Diego Pavia.
Diego Pavia's a baller.
Yes. Diego Pavia arguably
a piece of garbage.
Arguably should have won the Heisman Trophy.
Obviously should have been taken out in the street and beaten.
Let's call it what it is. He should have won the Heisman Trophy.
He was.
Uh,
I think he was.
I'm out on that.
I think he was better than Mendoza.
He is.
I mean, there are like four
Mendoza's
guys better
team
than Mendoza.
is so much better, and that's been a beauty contest forever.
Yeah, we all, I think, are on the same page. The Heisman's a joke, so it going to
Sure.
the wrong guy is not surprising to me at all. But
No.
I do think that Diego was the best quarterback that was at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And if a quarterback was going to win it, it should have been him.
They ain't beat nobody, Paul. They didn't beat nobody.
They beat us.
They won 10 games.
As I was saying,
They won
see
10
the previous
games.
discussion.
They won 10
Maybe
games.
I just hate him too bad, but
Yeah.
I've
10
never been
games
impressed
at
with
SEC
Diego
schedule.
Pavia.
Yeah.
Just
10
never been
games
impressed.
SEC schedule, and you're Vanderbilt. I mean, they got no pedigree, no. They're not a
To
perennial
me,
powerhouse.
these roster rankings say a lot about how much he makes up for. Like,
Right.
I don't know. There's probably not a WAR ranking in football, but if there was, Diego Pavia's WAR would be really high.
What's
Definitely.
Indiana's roster ranking?
51.
Okay. Yeah.
They are the team potentially to defy the blue chip ratio for the first time in like the last 20 years.
Yeah,
I'll take what their quarterback
it
did
is-
with
it
that
is my
roster
most
ranking over what Diego Pavia's did with their roster ranking.
The thing that the roster rankings, the reason why blue chip ratio and roster rankings, which I hold in high regard, may become they're going to have to be adjusted because none of them currently account for transfers,
which Diego is.
which Diego is.
And their best lineman that I don't know I can't remember his name, but Vanderbilt's best lineman, who was an absolute dog, offensive lineman, he was also a transfer. So like they're the best players on their team all came through the transfer portal, which if I'm understanding this Athlon ranking correct, Nick, it wouldn't account for that. Is that right?
Correct. It does not account for that. Neither does a blue chip ratio. But Indiana is the most interesting case to me in the college football playoff for a long time because they're a team that could legitimately win a national championship that does not meet the threshold of the blue chip ratio. And I don't think would, even if they accounted for their transfers.
Mm-hmm. Well,
They're not gonna. Alabama's going to beat them.
Why is everything in college football broken?
Probably.
I mean, analytics, you can't do it because it doesn't account for obvious stuff. The bowl system's broken because weird teams are in there. Refereeing is in the toilet. Like, I know, I get who I'm talking to.
Because we don't have a commissioner.
Well,
no one's in charge. At the end of the day, commissioner or not, no one's in charge. There are no rules.
Yeah, it's ultimately all the NCAA's fault. I've been beating that drum forever. Everybody knew that player compensation was a volcano building, and the NCAA sat on their thumbs rather than do anything about it other than beg Congress to intervene. And, I mean, this was coming for years. So, what's terrible about this is there'll never be accountability for the people who put us here. We just say the NCAA because we don't even know who their names are. Yeah. And so they just get to cash their checks and scoot right out after killing the golden goose. But it's disgusting. And if maybe a commissioner is the right answer, maybe it's Nick Saban, maybe it's Josh Pate, whatever. I don't care. Two. Maybe. But the fact of the matter is the NCAA should be disbanded. They basically at this point only care about March Madness. They're going to ruin March Madness because it's their only thing. They're going to make it 300 teams in the tournament. Like, if we're at this point, just disperse them. Stop making them money over mismanaging what I was going to say earlier. I know who I'm talking to, and I know I'm probably insane in the broader context too. But college football is the greatest American sport in my book. Maybe you say baseball. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. But it's at least number 2. And they have gutted it. And everybody's desperately hoping that their team can win a national championship before the whole thing falls into the sea.
Falls apart. Yeah.
It's just disgusting. And again, if there's a commissioner, his first act should be something punitive to the NCAA, where they stop getting any share of the revenue from college football. That would be the first thing I would do. I know this is not what we're here to talk about, but it's so frustrating to me that they've killed this thing that's just a license to print money that people are deeply invested in generationally. And again, we don't even know their names. They're not affected at all by the worst mismanagement that I've seen in my lifetime. I know most of the guys on this podcast are probably too young to remember this. it's even far back for me, but some of the people listening might. There was a time when boxing was the dominant U.S. sport. It was more important than anything. And when was the last time you cared about a boxing match? I can go back to remember Tyson, right?
Tyson
When I was a
Holyfield.
little kid, I could care about watching Tyson fight. But I mean, it really feels like right now college football is about to become American boxing.
Yeah.
We went to my papa's house to watch Tyson Holyfield because he bought it on pay-per-view.
Yep.
And, of course, that fight was over real quick, and he threw his remote across the room and said, "I'm never paying for that garbage again." And I've never watched boxing since then. Except
I mean,
YouTube
that's about
clips.
the last memory I have of boxing too. And I'll just tell you this too. Like, I was a big UFC guy, but I think I became a UFC guy when I was a big fan of the sport. Women fighting kind of chased me out of it. But when I was a huge fan of UFC, I think I was basically filling the gap of boxing. I think I
You're
would
feeling
be
the
really
boxing.
into.
You're filling the boxing-shaped hole in your heart.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, again, that's a rant. That's sidebar. I'm just disgusted, and so it had to come out somewhere. It's like the volcano of player compensation. For me, it's that somebody's got to do something to hold these NCAA freaks accountable.
Well,
I
we
mean-
want boomers to listen to this podcast too, so boomer rants here and there, pretty helpful, I think, for viewership. So
It's absolute. Just not to just keep throwing evidence on here and keep fueling this fire, but we're in a situation right now where a head coach of a playoff team is not even coaching that team as they're making a championship run. It's absolute. It's the Badlands out there.
yeah, it's chaos.
It's chaos. I mean, in any other context, that is absolute insanity. And
I don't think
in college
he would
football,
do it.
it's like, yeah, that's just how it is.
Hey, Joe, I don't think he would do it because of how bad the press has been for him over the last couple moves. But I guarantee you, in a neutral space, if Alabama came open, Lane Kiffin, if he didn't have to deal with all the bad press, would seriously consider leaving LSU for Alabama. Like it's one more decision from being the craziest thing you could possibly imagine. And the only thing holding him back is basically inappropriate relationships with students or whatever at his previous stops. I mean, this is unsustainable. What can't carry on forever won't. And that's where we're at with college football.
Well, gentlemen, that segues perfectly into talking about the college football playoff because listener Joe and I have had a recent argument about the college football playoff in terms specifically of group of 5 teams getting an auto bid into the playoff. So I'm just going to turn it over to Joe. And Joe, why don't you just kind of give your, however
Your
many
terrible
minute pitch
take. Give us your
on
terrible take.
why you believe that group of 5 teams deserve a automatic playoff bid.
So I think about this in sort of a similar context to the way that I think it's called relegation works with European soccer. Is that right? Is that the right term?
Relegation's a pretty interesting
relegation.
system.
Yeah.
I think that it's I think interesting is the right word.
Tennessee would be relegated in that system, by the way, just so we all know.
Yeah. But the opportunity for teams to sort of play their way, up into a higher bracket of competition as a way to elevate their program, I think is good. I think that's good for the sport. I think it's good for. I think it has entertainment value. Now, obviously, it's hard to make that argument. When Tulane
And James Madison got shellacked.
and JMU get absolutely, get absolutely killed. And so one thing, Mac and I got into this, in a pretty heated text thread.
No way.
And one thing that I think perhaps kills, I don't. Here's what I will say that's somewhat conciliatory. I don't think that the idea of having a Power 5 conference champion making an automatic bid, and I would be very comfortable with saying we'll have one of those. I mean, you can do that. You can say the highest overall ranked Power 5 conference champion gets an automatic bid, and then after that, we just go to the Power Four.
And you mean group of 5, right?
Yeah, sorry, Group of 5, Power Four. Group of 5. So the highest ranked conference champion that is a Group of 5 school gets an automatic bid, and then you can kind of do the same thing that you've got going with the Power Four school conference champions, and then ranking from there to kind of limit the amount of bad, potentially and realistically bad competition in the college football playoff. I would be very comfortable with that, but I'll say with the absolutely unrestricted free agency that you have in college football, that the relegation system will never work, right? And I'm not totally against player compensation as an idea, but you got to have a commissioner, and this it's got to be systematized in such a way that that Group of 5 school has a an outside chance, an outside shot. But I like the idea of the Cinderella story. I like the idea, Cincinnati, not that long ago, made a run. You had the Horned Frogs, get all the way to the national championship. There are stories of teams that we all expected to absolutely get bounced, and they actually go deep. And none of them have been national champions, but they got their shot to take their run. I think that's good. I think it's good for the sport. So I actually don't hate it. I like it. I know that I think I'm the only one in the room right now that has that opinion. But I like the idea of getting to kind of play your way up and in to making a championship run.
Well, before Mac makes the counter, or Nick, either one, I would just say, Joe, I would love a relegation system like you're talking about if it wasn't for portal transfers.
Sure.
I mean, you've already said it. It can't happen. But I think I'd probably prefer something like that to what we have now. I don't know if I haven't looked at Tulane, but I've already seen that James Madison's roster has something like 12 people going into the portal. There's no way to play up in those environments.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
It yet again sucks. You guys who are waiting to talk, go ahead.
Well, I would just say I don't think TCU is a better example because they won a playoff game, but Cincinnati.
To be clear, they're a Power 4 team.
They're a Power 4 team. Cincinnati
really
is
the only example. Cincinnati really is.
Cincinnati is a Group of 5 team that got in and got absolutely murdered
in the first game. It was
in the first round,
first game.
They were the 4 playing the 1, and they got killed. So to me, they're the same kind of example as a Tulane or a James Madison in that they got in on the back end of the playoff and got murdered. And so my thing is, I think it should be the best. I think it should be the best teams. And I think that there are teams there are many teams that are better than James Madison, Tulane that didn't get a chance to play in the playoff that merited being there. It would have been more interesting with Notre Dame and Vanderbilt there than it would have been or BYU,
then here's what I would say. If that's the case, then what I would say is that you got to split them. Then the G5 and the P4 just split into they're two different tiers of collegiate athletic play, but then that means you can never have them on your schedule. You don't ever play them. Right?
Not necessarily, because we already do that with like FCS teams, like
right. But I'm saying like if that's the position we're going to take, right? We want the best competition. Then why are we scheduling? Why is TTU playing the University of Tennessee? Those guys, according to you, those guys will never have a chance, right? That
won't.
We're playing them. We're playing them so that they can.
They're an even lower tier than the Group of 5 teams, and that's to me, it's a much better setup if FBS teams and FCS teams are never playing each other. But for a Power 4 team to schedule a Group of 5 team as a non-conference game, I think is much more appropriate because they're still because they're much better. They're much better teams.
They're not good enough. You don't think they're good enough to be considered in a college football playoff run? Why should they be on your schedule? That would be like the Steelers scheduling Ole Miss to play. Like they're both good football teams, but they're in totally different.
Well, those are apples. I think that's apples and oranges because I think the gap between the Steelers and any college football team is much higher than between a Power 4 team and a Group of 5 team.
The gap,
And I actually think, hang on, let me finish my argument. Hang on, let me finish my argument. Let me keep talking. You got to say your spiel. I didn't interrupt you. Now let me say my spiel.
Boys.
So I think a relegation system actually works, but the way you're describing relegation is not the way the relegation system works. You can't play up into the playoffs because you won the lower conference the year before. It just gives you the opportunity to play in the higher conference the next year. So the best three teams, hang on, let me finish. The best 3 teams in the second tier and the worst 3 teams in the top tier flip for the next season. And so I think you can have a system where you have Power 4 teams and you have Group of 5 teams. And if you're Tulane and James Madison this year, then next year, and again, I agree this doesn't work with the current portal madness, but you could play your way up into saying, okay, next year we get to play in the better division or the better conferences or whatever, because we earned our way up into that next tier. But to say that because you won all of your games against inferior talent and because you won a much inferior conference that you get to play in a college football playoff game seems crazy to me.
This is the craziness of ranking, right? Like this is why the ranking system is all kinds of crazy. Is because you got teams that have 1 or 2 losses, but the argument is always, well, they didn't play anybody. Well, get those people off the schedule then. If the Group of 5 teams, in the estimation of the community of college football, are not good enough to ever compete for a national championship, then they should never play. And it doesn't matter that the gap between them is smaller than the gap between TTU and the local high school team. Right, like that gap is greater than the gap between Tulane and Oregon, right? But who cares? The significance of the gap is inconsequential if the position is Tulane will never compete. They'll never beat Oregon. Those teams could line up and play 100 games, and 100 out of 100 times, or 99 out of 100 times, and the 100th one there was divine intervention, right? Like if the gap is that significant, then what I would say is that it's significant enough that they should be off the schedule. That they really should just split entirely.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm convinced that there should be a split. I'm not convinced that they should be not allowed to play each other at all. But I'm much more happy to do that than the current system. I'm much more happy to do what you're describing than the current system.
Go ahead,
more.
Well, what about with the idea of relegation? Which again, we're trying to fix like a simulation because we have no idea what's actually happening out there. But do y'all think? Let's say the Group of 5 team, the 2 bids who get in, right? What if we had a deal where whoever that is who gets in is bumped up into P4 competition, and by making that as a conference champion, not only do they get bumped up into P5 competition, but they get a $3 million bonus paid out on a 1-year basis to go into their recruiting budget. So maybe that stops the bleed off of their talent leaving and gives them kind of a first round draft pick scenario to level up for another year's run and see if they could hang with the big boys.
Well,
right?
it has to be that. I'm happy to consider that or anything else that just fixes the transfers. I actually don't think the NIL is as big a problem as the portal itself.
Yeah.
So I think
it's unrestricted free agency.
Yeah.
Right?
If you commit to it, I would be much happier to have a system where if you're going to commit to a team and they're going to pay you X amount of dollars, then you have to commit to that team for, if not the whole 4 years, at least like your first 3 years of eligibility. Or something like that.
Yeah, or if your coach is fired or, something like that with some common sense exceptions. I'm just thinking
there has to be something to stop the transfers because, like you're saying, if in the current system, if we had relegation, JMU and Tulane, they play their way up into Power 4 competition the next year. They're just going to go right back down because they're not going to be able to compete at that level because all their guys are going to get looted by everybody that's higher up the ladder.
So maybe if you tell your current roster, hey, we're going to play with the big boys next year and we've got more money to spend on our roster. It doesn't mean necessarily it's coming to you, but it's something you can approach us about. And we're going to try to fill out the roster in a way. it's not going to be comparable to Texas Tech. But in a way, Texas Tech was like, hey, we got a huge influx of cash. Let's see what we can do. Maybe that stops the bleed off and gives them a fighting chance to stay
And I'd
in.
be happy to see both of those things. Like, you have to commit to a school for X amount of years. You can't transfer for your first 3 years of eligibility or first 2 years or whatever. And if you jump up into that higher competition, you get some kind of bonus for winning the second tier. I think both those things could be good, for the new age of college football.
I would be for that. I like the idea of some kind of relegation, or maybe relegation isn't the best word, because like you said, strictly speaking, this is not the same thing. But the opportunity for teams that have developed good talent that want to go and sort of compete, and the other part of big part of Mac and I's discussion off air about this was my main reason for being a fan of it is that I just think that conference championship should matter, right? And I think my fear, and this may be a misplaced avenue of trying to prevent this scenario that I'm describing, but it seems to me like the direction that college football is going is that conference championships are just going to go away. Like, they're just not going to matter. It's just you're just going to play your season. We won't do conference champions, just the top 12, the top 12 teams that's your playoff, and you go. And I think that would be, you talk about, Jeff, you talk about sort of the disgusting, strip mining of the sport and the complete mishandling of it. If conference championships go away, I think that would be like the nail in the coffin for me, as far as just watching the thing that we love really degrade.
It's
and I'm a
happening.
big, yeah.
Well,
and
games are going to
that-
die first. Conference championships will die after that.
That's why
Yeah,
I think the separation, like what we're talking about, can actually help that, because if they're totally separated, then the conference championships in each of those two divisions now has greater weight, because
yeah,
the idea
that's fine.
because I think it's helpful that, like, what happened this year, I think we saw, is that for Alabama didn't get punished, and I hate Alabama, so I kind of, in our chat, as everybody knows, ranted about, I just hope Alabama gets left out just because I hate Alabama. But I do think it's objectively right that they not be punished for playing in an extra game that they earned to play in. Mac and I were arguing about that. I think he's actually right about that. But the flip side of that is BYU did get punished because of the junky system of Tulane and JMU jumping up in. They did get punished for playing in an extra game. And so I think if you separate them, then and you can win your conference championship in a group of 5 and play your way into the Power 4. And if you win a conference championship in Power 4 or lose, maybe it affects your seeding in a playoff, but it doesn't necessarily knock you out of a playoff that you should have already been in before the conference championship.
that may be the best solution to the problem. But again, I think if you go that route and you totally separate them, then I don't know how you can say that, because basically what you're saying is that the gap between P4 and G5 is so significant that these teams should not take the field together to compete at the highest level. Then why are they competing on week 3 on a Saturday? I don't know how you can make that. I don't know how you can make that argument, right? And frankly, I think we would all. It would solve a lot of the ranking, the AP poll, and then the college football playoff poll ranking system, if you got these cupcake teams off your schedule and everybody was forced to play somebody, you would actually have a more complete picture of where the talent level is year to year with each.
I think that's fine, because I think there's zero evidence that even a really good group of 5 team can be a really good Power 4 team. I think there's no evidence of that.
Yeah,
except for that one time Boise State won. So once in the last 100 years or whatever.
Well, I was thinking about this today when I was in the shower, because I knew Mac wanted to talk about it, and I thought I just don't see a solution for college football. I feel like I'm watching a thing I love die. So if they gave me absolute control, what would I do? And this will only satisfy me, but I'm going to just throw it out there and let y'all take a shot at it. When I said earlier that college football is the greatest American sport, I think the sport itself is part of that. There's something uniquely appealing about the game of football. But what I think actually makes it the second greatest or the greatest sport in my heart, I want to honor the baseball fans. What makes it the greatest for me is regionalism and generationalism. That it's one of the few things left in our society where your region and your family tradition still is a part of your rooting interest. So, like, I'm a localist at heart. Tennessee's like my whole cosmos. The Upper Cumberland is basically my whole world, So for me, I would double down on regionalism. I would go back to a certain driving distance between the schools. I'd make it hard and fast. So like Missouri's out of the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma are out of the SEC. I would dial back to, maybe the beginning of the SEC where it's within like a small driving distance. And maybe to integrate Joe's idea, the people within that geographic footprint could play up into the big boy tier. And here's where I'm going to lose everybody. Conference championships would be the highest level for me that wasn't voluntary. So like, the SEC championship is the highest scheduled competition for SEC teams that wasn't voluntary. And I guess what I'll add to this, guys, is that I think even the idea of a P4 is a joke. You've got a power conference, the SEC. You've got a Big Ten that has maybe 2 teams that are comparable. You've got a Texas Tech who buys its way into like a big run, but we don't really have 4 power conferences. That's why it's going to end up being the SEC and the Big Ten as the top tier of NCAA football. And the SEC is still just going to be top to bottom better than the Big Ten, even when everything consolidates. So for me, I would be like, hey, the highest that you can attain that we're scheduling as a governing body is your conference championship. And let the people in that region treat that as the heavyweight championship belt for a wrestler. If anybody wants to do anything beyond that, it would have to be something like the SEC commissioner setting up with the Big Ten commissioner. When all the conference championships are played, we actually want to know who's better. And so we're inviting you to play at this neutral site, and we're going to give it whatever we have. And that can be bonus, auxiliary, whatever they want to do, or they can do the Notre Dame thing and say, no, we're not going to play anybody. But I would go back to a hard and fast regionalism and let that be the top tier of the sport. I know that's not going to make anybody happy, but that's what would actually like preserve what I love about college football for the rest of my adult life.
It would be better than what we have now. Say that.
Well, I haven't, said anything. Obviously, I am very much so anti Group of 5 team getting an automatic bid into the playoff. And I'll kind of try and nuts and bolts just piece together quickly why I think that's a bad thing. And you guys have done a good job talking about both sides of it. But for me, Joe, you kind of led with it's hard to make this argument after watching Tulane and JMU get beat pretty bad. And I totally get what you're saying. I do think that that's a straw man argument for me or for you, right? Like if JMU had found a way to win that game, I think it's a straw man argument for you. And if I sit here and boast about like, look how the game wasn't even close, that would be a straw man argument for me. I don't think that's the point. I think that obviously it does matter to a certain extent. What happens on the field matters. But the real point of the argument here to me is that the Group of 5 teams that make up those 5 conferences are not playing the same sport as what the Power 4 teams that make up those 4 conferences are playing. They're not playing the same sport. And what I mean by that is they don't have the same resources. They don't have the same ability to get the same players. It's not even in the same tier of competition. If you look at Oklahoma, they played 8 teams this year that were like power rated in the top 50. So that's power ratings, generally look at, talent, who would be favored on neutral sites, things like that, like kind of objective numbers that aren't everything, but do at least give us a data set that says, okay, according to paper, these are the best 50 teams in the country, right? Oklahoma played 8 of those teams. JMU played 0 top 50 teams this year. They didn't play a single one. So my point in saying that is that JMU did not do the work in the regular season that is required for a team to have a automatic bid into the most important set of games, the most important playoff bracket in the country. They don't deserve to be in there because they're not the same caliber of teams. So when you guys are talking about why are these teams even, like Joe, when you were saying like, why would JMU, like why would a Power 4 team, if we separated it, why would a Power 4 team even play a Group of 5 team? Well, you could look at that now. Why do Power 4 teams play FCS teams, right? The reason they do that is because the FCS benefits from playing, like you use Tennessee Tech and Tennessee as an example. Tennessee Tech, their entire football program is funded by the University of Tennessee when they play Tennessee. So Tennessee, in a sense, is playing that game out of the kindness of their heart. And can I finish?
Please.
They're playing that game out of the kindness of their heart, and because Tennessee is in the most,
their heart.
Yeah, because Tennessee is in the most competitive conference in the country. We already have 9 conference games now moving forward. 9 conference games, and we have 1 game that's required to be a power conference out of conference game. So now you have 2 games left to play with. Tennessee can't, in good conscience, when it comes to load management with their players, like these aren't professional athletes yet. I know that the argument's kind of made that they're getting paid now, so whatever. But
they're professional athletes.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
But the point here is that these guys are still learning how to put this much wear and tear on their bodies. And so playing 2 extra power games on top of that is just not what's best for the individual players. Now, from a fan perspective of like, well, I just want to watch 12 good games. Sure, I can get behind that of like, we just want to schedule only power conference games for 12 games and you play 9 conference ones, 3 out of conference ones, and that's your schedule. I'm not here to like argue about those finer points because like that's not the point. The point here is that JMU and Tulane do not have the pedigree in their regular season to be given an automatic opportunity to play in the playoff where Power 4 teams are playing. It's not fair to teams like, as Nick mentioned, Notre Dame, BYU, teams like Vanderbilt.
You can't say that when Notre Dame does the same thing, dude. Notre Dame's the exact same.
Yeah, so this
is
where
automatic bid next year if they.
The best case, take Notre Dame out then if you don't like that. The point here is that these teams aren't playing with the same resources. It's not the same game. The best case scenario, and this is where you're kind of you're making a different argument in this chat, in this podcast than you were privately, which is that the best case scenario is absolutely having a Group of 5 playoff and a Power 4 playoff. I agree with that. That was the foundation of my entire argument from the beginning. That's best case scenario. The problem, though, is you were saying that the Group of 5 deserves an automatic bid into the big boy playoff, and that cannot be true because they don't play the same game. They don't have the same resources. And the second that they get good enough players, those players leave because you know what they want to do? They want to play in the SEC. They want to play in the Big Ten because it's a different game. It's a completely different game. The best case scenario here is that we completely separate these 2 things and we have a Power 4 playoff and a Group of 5 playoff. And that's what it is. The Power 4 conference champions get an automatic bid, and the next highest rated 8 teams get in. So it's 12 teams from the Power 4. Then in the Group of 5, you get the 5 conference champions that get an automatic bid, and then the next highest rated 7 or whatever, if you're doing a 12-team playoff there as well, get in. That's the best case scenario. But that is in alignment with what I was saying from the beginning off air, which is that we should have 2 different playoffs. We should not have Group of 5 teams automatically in the Power 4 playoff.
But that's fine. But it's rank with hypocrisy because nobody has a problem with these schools that apparently are so bad they're playing a different game.
Correct.
They're playing a totally different game. but we'll invite them in on a Saturday and beat the tobacco juice out of them.
They get paid to play. They get paid to play.
I know I understand the business side of it, but that I don't give that. That's not part of the equation here because we're talking about
for them.
I understand.
They care about
sure, I would go and get killed for $500,000. Sure, $500,000 or whatever you're getting, $1 million, $3 million, whatever you're getting. Right? I understand the business side of things. But that's not part of the equation. What we're talking about, I understand it's part of the equation for the teams. What we're trying to decide is what's best for the sport.
Best for the sport is splitting the two playoffs.
Okay, well, that's fine.
It's not fine because you argued that shouldn't be the case when we were off air, and now you're changing.
I think Joe's point is that if you play JMU in the regular season, that should not count to the way you're evaluated at the end of the season.
And that's fine. That's not even what we're talking about.
Hold up. It's probably the place to merge your two positions is that probably these lower tier games like a Tech or a JMU doesn't count on the team's win-loss record. That it is an acknowledged in-season scrimmage that is done for player tune-up, revenue collection, whatever it is, but it just doesn't get added to the win-loss record, and it's acknowledged to be the scrimmage that it is. That would probably reconcile the two of you, and it would be more honest.
Yeah, the point I was making about splitting, what I was trying to demonstrate is that if a person is going to say that the G5 schools have absolutely no business competing in the college football playoff, then what you're saying is they have absolutely no business competing with P4 schools.
No, that's not the same thing. I think there's a difference between.
How is it not the same thing?
Because you're talking about a playoff, and because you're talking about
hang on. Why are you playing regular season games? The purpose
they're supposed to count towards win-loss.
Based on what you just said, regular season games are supposed to demonstrate who is worthy to compete at the highest level in the college football playoff. That's what you just said. So if they're really from different worlds, as you're saying, they're playing two totally different games, then they should not be playing each other during the regular season because it would be like I don't know, it'd be like an NFL team playing a college team. Like they're from two totally different worlds.
Scrimmage. It's a scrimmage. That's the language of the sport for these things.
But the thing is, if a team like James Madison played a group of 5 team in the regular season that was on the caliber of a playoff team and beat them, it would be a different argument. If they were playing those games and winning them, then you could argue, okay, maybe James Madison should be in the playoff because they actually beat somebody. But when they only play group of 4 teams all year long and there's nothing comparable to compare, like just because some Power 5 teams play some group of 4 teams doesn't mean that all the group of 4 teams I think should be treated the same.
I'm not necessarily in total I guess where I'm coming at this, Joe, is that I think that you are now arguing a finer point of the larger argument. The finer point of you're saying they shouldn't play at all in the regular season, as Nick kind of said earlier, that's better than what's going on now. That wasn't even on my topic of discussion. What's more on the topic of discussion was you originally said group of 5 should be automatically bid into the big boy playoff. And I disagree. I think it should be 2 separate playoffs.
That's fine, but
let's restrict it to the conversation on this podcast. Maybe since we're not all privy to the other one, let's just stay there.
But what I'm saying is it's inconsistent. I think the reason why my position is correct, that the highest rated conference champion of the G5 should get an automatic bid, is because what the regular season demonstrates is that these teams play each other and that they're playing in some meaningful way the same competitive level, right? And all the data may say that they shouldn't. Well, then fine, then they shouldn't. Then separate them. But since that's not the case, that's not the way things are now, then the highest rated conference champion of the G5 should get their shot because they play during the regular season. What are we talking about? I mean, what you're describing would be like, it would be like, we all know that the Tennessee Titans or the Las Vegas team in the NFL is so bad that they should automatically be withdrawn from any kind of consideration, regardless of whether they won their division or not. And the NFL has had this where division. I mean, I'm a Steeler fan. I love the Steelers. The Steelers have a really good chance to win their division, which means they would get an automatic bid to go
until
to
DK Metcalf punched a fan.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. We won't talk about that. Right. So the Steelers are in a really good position to, potentially make to go to the playoff, but they're not good. They're probably not going to win. They haven't won a playoff game in years. I mean, years. It's been, they haven't won a football playoff game since like 2008. So like, why? And again, I maybe that's part of what's coloring my reasoning for the G5 is that I like that the division winner from every division in the NFL conference, whether you're AFC or NFC, I like that they get an automatic bid, even in years when it was like that team is clearly not one of the 6 best teams from the NFC back when it was 6 teams, or one of the 6 best teams or 7 best teams in the NFC now. Like you could kind of see it was clear, right? Clear on paper, whatever. But winning your division should matter. I like that it matters. It's good that it matters.
It's just
you're talking
apples
about
and oranges.
different. Yes, thank you, Nick, because you're talking about all these different division winners within the NFL, which has they're dealing with similar resources across the board in the NFL. There's better teams, there's worse teams, but they all have similar resources. We're talking about something different. As Nick's saying, it's apples to oranges. Group of 5 does not have similar resources to Power 4 teams. It's completely different.
Then get them off the schedule.
And that's fine, Joe, but that's not the discussion.
Put your money in the math is, but that's not the way that
the discussion. The discussion was specifically about the playoff. Do they deserve an automatic bid into the playoff? And the answer is clearly and obviously no. They do not deserve it.
The answer is yes, because they're in the same competitive bracket.
They're not.
They are. They are.
Let me jump in there, guys. What y'all are both ultimately arguing for isn't so much a division between, these like the best tier of teams and the next best tier of teams. You're actually arguing for one super conference that contains the SEC, Ohio State, and Michigan, and nobody else. And everybody else, like Iowa, doesn't play the same sport in the way Mac is talking about it. Iowa doesn't play the same sport the way Ohio State does.
Yeah, but the difference is Iowa plays.
Syracuse doesn't play it the same way Tennessee does.
Yeah, but they play all of the good teams. Therefore, when they have a season like Indiana's,
they play a whole bunch of the garbage Big Ten teams. The SEC, basically, if you play an SEC schedule, you're playing a top tier schedule throughout the whole of your conference season. The Big Ten doesn't do that. Ohio State looks incredible in the playoffs because they have like one decent conference game and everything else is cupcakes. They're not playing the same amount of the same caliber of teams that even a Mississippi State is.
Yeah, I think that again is apples and oranges. I mean, Indiana is a case this year where that's a team that normally would play big teams, lose, and wouldn't be in the playoff. But because they have those teams on their schedule and because they went to the Big Ten and won it, they're the number 1 team in the country.
We talked earlier about how like the TCU is a one-off anomaly doesn't justify the system. So, okay, Indiana catches lightning in a bottle. Syracuse is not doing the same thing that Oklahoma's doing. They're just not.
But
NC
Indiana
State isn't
can
doing
catch
the
lightning
same
in a
thing
bottle.
that Oklahoma is doing. They're
Indiana,
just apples and oranges.
Yeah, there are always going to be teams that have to catch lightning in a bottle. Indiana has the capability to do that. James Madison doesn't even have the capability to catch the lightning in a bottle.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, again, Indiana, I'm just not going to take them as an example when we said, TCU really doesn't prove the thesis.
TCU is a bad example because
TCU is a bad example that Joe used because they're a Power 5 team.
Exactly right. Power 4.
They can catch lightning in a bottle.
The Power 5 is not uniform. That's the whole point of this. It's a fiction to pretend like Illinois is the same thing as Alabama. They're just not. And they're not
the same. No one's arguing. No, I disagree. No one's arguing that they're the same. But the Power Four teams, even at the bottom tier, have the ability and have shown that they can catch the lightning in the bottle, whereas the teams in the
No, they
lower
don't.
division can't
No,
do
they
that.
don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, they
TCU
don't.
won a
Indiana's
playoff
the
game.
one. Indiana's
Indiana
the
won the
one
Big
instance
Ten.
you can point to. You can only point to Indiana. When was the
And
last
TCU.
great tier?
Washington.
Yep.
Which won what?
They went
Went to
national
the
championship
national
game.
championship.
But what did they win?
Okay, well, so if you don't win the national championship, then now
So
you don't.
every now and then, some third-tier team gets a chance to show up and lose to an actual good team.
They're
I'm just
part of the
telling you,
Power Four.
this is Mac's argument applied consistently.
No, you're saying winning a
and college
playoff game
football
means
is going to have to deal with that. These teams are just not comparable. They're not.
Yeah,
year in and year
I
out.
think
Year in and year out, that's true. There's a clear difference. There's a clear difference in Washington and Indiana and TCU than there is in James Madison and Tulane.
Yeah,
those teams
but
have
again,
won
but this
playoff
is-
agree
games.
with that.
But this is what
You
I'm
don't
saying,
agree
though.
that winning a
This is-
playoff game means you're in a different tier than James
Hang
Madison?
on, but the point is
not ultimately,
the
not
point-
in the sense that we're not playing the same sport as Mac just described.
right.
Well-
That's what I'm saying
No,
too. Like
that's
you're
totally
you're-
disagree.
I don't know. This is I can't even count how many times I've sat in conversations with this group of people, and you guys talk about the frustrations of Power Four teams being considered at such a high level, and the commentary is always, well, but they didn't play anybody.
Exactly.
I've heard you use that same language
Exactly.
about that you're using with G5 schools.
Yes.
Applied to Power Four schools
I
in the
affirm
last
that.
12
I
years
think
that I've
those
been
I think those are two totally different conversations.
Yes. I agree with that.
based on what?
Because we're talking about, you
The
asked me based
playoff.
on what? We're talking about the playoff. So if we're saying, yes, I agree
Playoff.
that, for example, TCU, the year that they went to the 4-team playoff, they won a playoff game, and then they lost to Georgia in the championship in terrible fashion. That team, though they didn't play anyone in the regular season, they deserved a shot at the playoff because they are a Power Four team that play with this
That's
level of
arbitrary.
resources.
That's
It's not
insanity.
arbitrary.
That's
Arbitrary.
that's nominalism.
Arbitrary.
You're just labeling at that point.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're
the
saying-
Power
you
Four
just-
is a higher quality of teams and competition than the Group of Five. And so,
Which
to
is
Nick's
why they
point,
call them Power Four and Group of Five, because there's
Right.
a clear
Right, but-
difference.
That's obsolete. It's obsolete. If you're
It's
going to
not
make the
obsolete.
argument,
Not
Yeah,
until a
it
Group of
is
Five
if you
team
make-
can win a playoff game.
if you make an argument that there's a difference in the quality of opponent, the quality of resources, the quality of product,
yes.
you're ultimately arguing for most of the Big Ten to get kicked to the curb, most of the people out west getting kicked to the curb. That okay, so they won a playoff game one time. Whoop-de freaking do. That's wonderful. They're not in the same tier. And if we're going to start being real politic about this, Syracuse, Iowa, NC State, those teams just aren't playing the same sport, to use Mac's language, and we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah,
I totally agree that they're in a totally different tier. I just think the gap is much more massive for.
Okay,
for
I'll
a
even
Group of
grant
Four
you that the
team.
gap is much more massive. It doesn't matter. They're not
Who
playing
cares?
the same. Right.
Right.
That's
The-
irrelevant.
so
That's what I mean
because-
by obsolete. It
The
doesn't
significance
matter.
of yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. The significance of the gap is irrelevant when the data shows that those teams are never going to compete anyway. Like, who cares if the gap is this much? So if I'm trying to catch a ledge to save my life and I miss it by this much, or I miss it by this much, who cares? I still
What's that?
died. Right? Like this is my frustration with the entire conversation, because essentially what it feels like to me, what people are arguing for, is we just want the best teams always. But college football, partially because it's so large, answering that question is more complex than it is in the NFL. You got 32 teams, and they all kind of play each other, right? It's a much simpler system because of it's so much smaller. But that's kind of where I see this train. If I'm looking forward to where does this train ultimately stop? It stops with there will be 16, 24. You look at like 24 teams in the college football, in the whatever you call it. It won't be the Power Four anymore because there will only be one, and they'll split into 14 pods or 16 pods or whatever.
Well, even why do that?
But it'll be one.
even that idea, Joe, is a relic of the regionalism I was just talking about. So the reason Iowa and Syracuse and Illinois are in a power conference is because they're holdovers. This is what I meant by obsolete earlier. They're just there because they were regionally close to teams that matter today. It has nothing to do with any intrinsic quality in the program itself. So like this idea of regionalism, pods, anything like that, if and I'm very actually sympathetic to Mac's argument, but my point is just that if we're really going to acknowledge what's actually true, those things have to be scrapped entirely, because a lot of the Power Four doesn't actually belong in the Power Four. There needs to be a Power One.
Right. But I actually don't see a way, if you carry the argument of, rating the talent the way that we're kind of talking about, I don't see how you avoid that as a natural conclusion. And by the way, we would not be part of that conversation. Tennessee would never compete for a national championship ever, based on the last 25 years of.
Well, because I need to be able to be hurt by the program, I have to believe that they could cycle up. But I get what you're saying. Like, this is not a self-interested argument.
Well, a lot of good discussion, guys. I appreciate everybody sharing their opinions passionately. We'll probably talk more about this in the offseason, I'm sure. Let's go ahead and just do a brief, because we're a little bit longer in our previous pods. Let's go ahead and do a brief, just touch on the Tennessee basketball game Sunday. I mean, not probably much needs to be said. Tennessee, did what they were supposed to do against an inferior Gardner-Webb team. Won that game by 42, which was exciting for me, as I had Tennessee covering 41.5 on the spread. So big win for me. But did anything stand out to anyone? I can kick us off. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but Trey Henderson was awesome. And, obviously it's hard to take too much from a game against Gardner-Webb, but, you'd like to think that he was shooting the ball well, and that can carry over to other games. So I'm excited to see what his role looks like moving forward. I'm not saying that he's going to be a key piece of what we're doing, but I thought he shot the ball really well, and he looked like he's a fun player to watch on Sunday.
Mac, my only takeaway from that game is, Joe will know this, I actually thought the game was going to be played the day before, and thought I even saw details on Twitter about the way the game was playing out. So the only thing I know about the Gardner-Webb game is a friend of mine sent me a picture with his young son at his first basketball game, and it was a cute picture.
Probably the most important takeaway for me as well, so that's fine.
I think Gardner-Webb is a much inferior opponent that we probably shouldn't be playing.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everyone's discussion tonight. Listener, we will be back next Monday, the 29th. We'll record that evening or that day, and we'll get this our next and last one of 2025, last podcast of the year out. We'll cover in depth more of the Music City Bowl, talk about that game, what it looks like, and we'll make some predictions. And then maybe we'll have some punishment for the worst prediction on the show. I think that'd be kind of fun. So we'll do something like that. Do it. Guys, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Love you guys. Good discussion.
Love you guys too. Just remember, it's terminal.
It's terminal. All right, listener, thank you so much.
Mac, you're going to get out of here without showing us your...
Oh, yeah, Mac, show off the games, dude.
I got it. Sorry, man. I got...
Oh, baby.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
I'm filled with the Christmas spirit. I'm going to do a lap.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Christ is King. It's VOLatile. Have a good day.